Hello, Peaceful Warriors. This is your host, Anil, and welcome to my show, Peaceful Growth, where I interview successful entrepreneurs and experts who have achieved remarkable growth in their business or profession. We all want to grow in our life, right? But not at the cost of our peace and happiness. So we also talk about some of the strategies, tips, and techniques on how to manage this growth by also having a successful and purposeful life. You can also sign up for my weekly newsletter, Learn Plus Grow, at anilg.substack.com, where I share 3 tips to help you learn, grow, and inspire each week. Now to today's episode. Hey everyone, my today's guest is Peter Ericson, who also goes by Pete. Pete has 2 decades of digital entrepreneurship experience. He is the founder of Leaky Paywall, which offer a seamless paywall experiences for revenue and audience growth to businesses publishing with WordPress. In today's episode, we deep dive into Pete's entrepreneurship journey, tips on getting the first 100 customers, productivity and health tips, and a lot more. Let's get started. Pete, welcome here, and thanks for your time today. So let's start with Leaky Paywall and your story. If you can maybe just quickly introduce yourself and, what's your story?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, Neil. I really appreciate it. Peaceful Growth. I love this name. This is awesome. And I sort of connect directly to it. But our background story, let's see if I can make it quick. In 98, I started building corporate websites. So pre.com bubble, long time ago. The challenge that I found, and I'm not a developer, I'm more in the marketing and the sales realm. The challenge that I found, which relates to publishing, is that we discovered that if you produce content as a business, Google rewards you, right? So if it could be you could be a contractor, you could be a roofing company, you could be, obviously travel and real estate. But those that produced more content got more traffic, and they were succeeding like crazy. And I did my best, but I couldn't convince customers to really turn on content, like content marketing, which is now so normalized today. And today we work with news, magazine, content publishers, and they're all about the content. And so they have such an advantage, but they're trying to figure out the digital marketing side at this point. Anyway, so 98 jumped to about 13 years ago. So about 2010, Dartmouth College hired us and said, hey, because we started with WordPress version 1, and we got in. I got in at the point where I remember installing it, working with it successfully, and then putting in that plugin that lets you create pages on the site. And Dartmouth College said, hey, we understand you guys are good at WordPress. We have our Dartmouth Engineer magazine. We'd like the magazine issues to not be PDFs or flipbooks. We want them to be real web-based issues. And nothing existed on the WordPress repository. So we said, yeah, we can build that. And so we built our first product called Issue M, which is a web-based issue publisher. And we have plenty of magazine publishers that use it and love it. And then a few years later, almost 9 years ago, we had a publisher ask us, hey, we want to charge subscriptions. And that was the time when the New York Times was starting to have traction with what they called the metered paywall, right? Which now is ubiquitous. So we looked at what they were doing and said, yeah, we can do that. And so we built Leaky Paywall version 1. We sold it. We were selling copies of Leaky Paywall back in the day. But I was talking to my partner and lead developer, Jeremy, at a Boston WordCamp, and we had a beer, maybe 2, and we decided, hey, let's pump up the volume and put Leaky Paywall on the WordPress repository. because it wasn't there. And so we did that, and that was probably the best decision we ever made. So we got a lot of visibility with developers, and we started getting a lot more leads and customers, and we ended up selling Leaky Paywall as a an add-on kind of a product. And that really takes us to where we are today, where we have and we only focus on Leaky Paywall as a audience building platform and a then conversion to paid subscriptions platform. So I don't know if that was short enough for you, but that's essentially the story.
Yeah. No, thanks for sharing that. And I think, one thing that was interesting for me from that story is that you said you started in 1998, right? So that is even before the WordPress was born.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So in that period, like when you started working on this in 1998, and what was that point where you realized that now it's time that we should take it to the WordPress?
Oh, that's a good question. So we were using a software platform called NetObjects Fusion, and the original intent of the business was the company was called Fishnet, and the original intent of the business was to build a website and teach businesses how to manage their own websites. So we were way too early on that. NetObjects released a software module that let businesses do this. And by the way, it didn't work at all. No, they just said, take my money and update my website. Like that was, I was like, okay, trying to be a good guy here, but that was the reality. And the software didn't work well. It was clunky. And so I said, okay, there's got to be a better solution. So I went looking, installed WordPress, tried to install Drupal, tried to install Joomla. Again, I'm not a developer, so I'm sure I did a lot of things wrong, but the WordPress install went like, it was the true 5-minute install. So it was hooked right away. It was an easy interface. It was a login-based, obviously, system, and customers could actually make it work. They could log in and update things. It was that easy. So that's how we jumped from pre-WordPress to WordPress. It was really the pain point of having customers be able to update things themselves. And I've always been a fan of empowering others. So so WordPress was it, and we've been there ever since. Yeah.
Nice. So is it fair to say that at this moment your 100% focus is WordPress, or you are also looking at scaling Leaky Paywall to outside WordPress?
We're not. We've thought about it for half a second for a lot of reasons. One, the big reason is that you have a native solution and total control over your data when you use WordPress. Our competitors are SaaS platforms that you drop in a piece of code, you interact with their servers, they serve up a paywall, and it works. It works, and there are probably use cases for that. But our customers tend to, we hear things like, where's the data live, and how it has to be their customer information, their payment, total control over their payment gateways, being able to move data around, export, import, and feel like they can hire different WordPress developers if needed, and everyone's familiar with it. So the ecosystem is gigantic. It happens to be, WordPress by itself happens to be absolutely the perfect enterprise platform for a publisher. It's so and this is pros and cons, right? Like it's so mature now that it can do anything that you want as a publisher, and publishers want to do lots of different things, as you probably know, right? And WordPress lets publishers do that. They can customize the experience for the reader the way they want it to be. You can't really do that with an outside system. And we've had so much success with helping publishers, build their audience through this sort of like a seamless on-site experience where the data lives on the site, the UI is fully integrated to the website because it's all WordPress. You're not bringing in other systems. The login system is easy because it's a native WordPress login system, and you're not communicating with third-party servers and things like that. It altogether, WordPress lets the publishers do, set up the way that they want their content to be displayed and how they want to treat their audience and the promotions and marketing and all that. And then, control. So the customer experience is good, the subscriber experience is good, and then control the data 100%. And we kind of like, we're this 100% open source philosophic organization. We want to play nicely with others, and we realize that there's lots of other solutions for things, and we just like to connect. And that's kind of the way it's been. We're really focused on this subscription experience, this paywall that we have, and then we plug into a lot of third-party systems. So,
yeah.
Yep.
So who and how they are using Leaky Paywall? So if you can maybe share some of the big brands or publishers, and how they are using Leaky Paywall in day-to-day basis.
Yeah. So let me just share my screen real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I'll bring up a kind of a simple example. And all right. And all right, let me know if you can see this.
Yep.
Okay, so this is on the so this is a typical local regional news publisher, right? Salem Reporter out on the West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
And our goal with all publishers is really two things, well, three things, but right now it's mostly two. One is build audience. So the Salem Reporter gets a lot of traffic. How do you capture those casual readers, right? Mm-hmm. And you right now it's like email newsletter pop-ups are probably the one of the decent ways to capture email addresses and build audience, but the best way, and what we do with our publishers is we take the reader through a free registration experience through the subscription funnel, right? And okay. It's all about that seamless experience. And whether you're a magazine publisher, whether you're a news publisher, whether you're content, whether you're a YouTube publisher, which we're starting to work with YouTube publishers, this is the way to build your audience. And you need the email address. It gets added automatically to the newsletter. The newsletter drives the readership back, as you know, to read more content and trigger the next message. So I'm actually logged in as a free registered reader. Let me actually go into incognito quick, and then let me trigger the actual message. So this is what I'm trying to show. So this is step one.
Okay.
The casual reader comes in from Google or social, and they read. And the publisher can be as generous as they want to be, right? Mm-hmm. You get 1 free article a month, you get 10 free articles a month. I would recommend with a free registration, 1 free article. And then the second article, you get this messaging, this is free. You put in your email password. Some publishers want to collect demographic information and go through a bigger registration, but this is a very focused funnel, right? It's simple. Right. One button on here, super simple. This converts incredibly well, better than newsletter pop-ups. The motivation here is they want to read the story, right? And then you can, hey, you get on our newsletter, you'll get maybe a few, like the New York Times says, get a few more stories, each month. They don't tell you, it's just a few more. And you don't have to, then you can experiment. You don't have to worry about changing things on your site, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, so once you go through this, it triggers like a welcome email, and that you can do a drip campaign to kind of show off your mission and your content and really start building the relationship, because it's all about the relationship building of that casual visitor. And with this being restricted to one, and I'm getting in the weeds here, so stop me if I go too far. Mm-hmm. But when you're saying, hey, you give away 1 article for free, the second article you have to register. Well, if any publisher that's publishing looks at their Google Analytics, you'll see the average page view per visiting user is like 1.5, 1.7 pages, something for the casual visitor that comes in. So you want to stop them pretty early in the process and grab their email address. This is sort of part of the success loop. And then once I register, I'll read my whatever number of articles that I get.
Right.
And then I'll get stopped again saying, hey, it's time to upgrade. And when I hit upgrade, it's like, okay, these guys are doing it right. It's a simple message. It's one option. You're really creating a narrow funnel, right? You're not, and one thing that we see with certainly our publishers and most publishers is I have 9 subscription options, right?
Okay.
Right. So, you know, or even 3 subscription options, which is sort of the magic number.
Yeah.
If you can bring it to 1, you don't want your readership to do math. You don't want to confuse your readership. You know?
Right.
Even print and digital, you know, things that are succeeding, like you have one price. It's the same price. Doesn't matter if it's digital or print. Anyway, so this is, what was the original question?
No, I think, so I think it's great that we are able to see how the publishers or your customers are leveraging Leaky Paywall into their business. And I think the big takeaway for me was that that usually when it comes to monetizing, like providing the tools to monetize your content or membership, there are probably like a bunch of different tools, that people can use, like within the WordPress or outside WordPress, like some SaaS or subscriptions and stuff like that.
Yep.
But one thing that I like and that you mentioned, which was that you also educate them, like help them convert, like not just providing like, hey, here are the bunch of the tools, take it and do it yourself, but you are also advocating about like what is the right kind of conversion funnel, like single one button conversion, stuff like that. I think that's something that is, I don't think so I have seen that in a lot of other the paywall solutions. And you and I, we talked about, I think a few months ago, where my agency Multidots, we also work and help like publishers to build WordPress websites. And often as a part of our scope, we also help them find the right kind of like monetization tools or tools that can help them convert more subscriptions or stuff like that. And we have been evaluating that at that time, and we learned more about the Leaky Paywall. And I think that was the one thing that my team told me, like, we have actually analyzed a lot of different plugins, but looks like Leaky Paywall actually does really good job in terms of advocating and educating the publishers about what is the right way to monetize and convert your traffic.
Yeah. I mean, it's churn prevention and it's growth. It's all that combined. It's a marketing driven platform. It has to succeed. And publishers are in really tough shape right now because they're doing all the wrong things. And so what we're doing is I realized this since day one. It's like you need to teach people, and it's fun to teach people to succeed. And so, if somebody signs up, the first thing we do is schedule a meeting, schedule another meeting, get everything on the technical side set up, and then talk to them about marketing, right? And like this, what's really interesting is that this free registration, or registration wall, I think is the typical name for it. It works incredibly well, and to me, I see this installation across many of our sites, and it's working incredibly well. But for most publishers, still today, it's a new idea, and it's they have to wrap their brains around it. And so there are lots of ways to generate revenue beyond basic subscriptions as well. You have group subscriptions, you have ad-free plans, which we have publishers succeeding with. We have pay-per-post, like YouTubers that are in the music space, like guitar teachers. They can sell individual guitar lessons or full subscriptions. So there's all sorts of advanced things you can do, but we're really focused on the basics with a lot of publishers, which is build your audience first. Like, you have to build that audience. You have to get the email address. That is priority number one. It's your number one direct marketing tool, and then set it up in a simple way that actually works. And this, what you're looking at, the previous two, we call them subscription nags, but these nags that end up in the content. We've spent a lot of time, and not just me, but our team, figuring out what actually converts. Like, what, we have a lot of publishers. We try different messaging across publishers, and we see the ones that start to like, spin up, and it's like, all of a sudden they're getting, and I know with Salem Reporter, I'm not going to give you any numbers, but for a local news publisher, they're well into double digits every day with free registrations. And then a percentage of those free registrations convert to paid subscriptions. And that percentage it varies amongst publishers, but it's probably around 5%, but I've seen as high as 30% depending on how nichey the publication is, how tight that niche is. So it's just a formula now, really, is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, Pete. So let's talk about the growth part of your business, like growth and the scale part of the business. So which year did you launch the WordPress plugin?
So that was about 8 years ago. Was it 20? It might have been. I think it was 2015, but I keep, so right around 2014, 2015. I forget.
Sorry. So roughly 8 years, right? Since you launched WordPress.
8 years, yeah.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about like when you launched 8 years ago. What was your team looked like? And any like installs and numbers, anything that you feel comfortable sharing, and that can also help connect with like where you are today, and then we can kind of like we'll discuss about your journey from there until today.
Yeah, for sure. So when we started, we were selling a few. There were two of us. I was sales and had my other partner developer, and we just built a very simple version of a metered paywall for WordPress for this client. And that's one thing that really has helped us, and we've avoided raising money, is that the need for a metered paywall in the past 8 years has been so great, and I think is even almost greater now, that our customers have been paying us to build features into Leaky Paywall, which is, I think, a pretty standard software approach. Customer wants something. Hey, we need gift subscriptions to do this special thing, or we need coupons to do this special time delay, or whatever these things. And sometimes we build it because it's sort of core to the product, core to the business. Sometimes, and with customers, you say, look, we'll just build this at cost, and you'll get a lifetime license to it, and or whatever deal you want to create. And it's a great way to bootstrap your way up in the software space. And what I would say is, don't be afraid to ask your customers to pay to cover the costs of adding features to a product that they're really interested in. We're in a business where our software generates revenue for our customers, so it's really important to them. And if if you're in that space, then everything you do is super important. And they realize that you only have limited time, limited resources, and they will help you with your mission. So that's one thing. So we went from selling a few per week, and then we decided, because what we were doing at the same time is we were building. So when we created our issue-based software called Issue M for WordPress, and we have a tool suite for it, is we were attracting. We started with Dartmouth College, and then all of a sudden other colleges came out of the woodwork and said, hey, we want you guys to build our magazines for us. So that's what we did. That's how we funded the company, is we would take on these projects with the local.
You did some agency work to kind of like
totally. Absolutely. So we were in the agency space for many, many years, building out. And then when we built Leaky Paywall, our agency work kind of morphed into using our own software to build subscription websites for publishers, and a lot of that came with the magazine publisher world, where they needed both a good issue management system, web-based, Google-friendly, social-friendly system, plus the metered paywall. So we did that until we got to the point where we could literally stop. We just put a hard stop on it and said, we're making enough revenue. We don't need to do that anymore. Because our last project that we did took 2 years to launch. It was huge. And I was like, okay, we're done. That's it. But and that was a long time.
Yeah.
But when we decided to put Leaky Paywall on the repository,
Yeah.
that's when things picked up. And I remember when we crossed 100 installations on the repository. And one thing I will say,
you remember that when it crossed the 100?
Yeah.
I have one question about that I think, will be very, very helpful for those who are already in the stage of either starting a WordPress plugin company or have just started recently and want to grow. So what was your, I would ask like process or strategy to get your first 10 customers? Because I think that's where, it's kind of like an MVP. Like, once you can sell to 10 people, then you have a confidence stage. You have a confidence in the product and you feel like, okay, So how did you get your first 10 clients?
So the transition was first to WordPress. So we became I'm in New Hampshire, in a small area of New Hampshire. We kind of became known as the WordPress experts in our region.
Okay.
And from that, when we got into issue publishing, we attracted a lot of schools. They don't need subscriptions. Leaky Paywall subscription. They needed something else. But our network expanded, and we did start to see other publishers that were in the general magazine space who said, hey, we need a metered paywall, and we see you have this issue system. And so the issue M was on the repo first, actually, which started. We got to 1,000 installations on issue M, pretty quickly, and that gave us some exposure for Leaky Paywall. So that was like one plugin to another.
Okay.
So we really the WordPress repository was the turbocharge, right? That was developers coming in saying, hey, I'm working on this project for this publisher. This looks pretty interesting. Can you tell me more about it? And so, we started talking to developers, and they started picking it up, and it was cheap. I mean, really, it was like like with any startup, right? You start with your price down here, you just bring in people, and I totally recommend giving away for free or selling something really cheap just to get the experience. So you know what the needs are of that customer, and then you can build your marketing around those needs. So we went from, and one of the big changes for us is as we started acquiring, and we were doing the agency work simultaneously at this phase. Like you need to fund this. So you need to do that work. So we're like, we'll build your meter paywall. We'll quote you for a project. And they hired us because we were the experts with our own software, which makes sense. And we had already started talking about, I was already helping publishers succeed with marketing their content and their subscriptions because of previous work, in the digital marketing space all the way back to, 98 essentially. And that really resonated. I didn't know how much it resonated with publishers until today. I mean like current times essentially.
Yeah.
So our first, we had a customer come back, first time buyer, $295 for the whole suite, plugin suite.
Okay.
Per year was what we charged, right? Which is kind of a typical WordPress price point, right?
Right.
You buy a bundle, it's $300 for the year or whatever. And we were doing the agency work, and we were selling at that price level for a while. And then I can't remember when, but we got to a point where it's like, we know we're offering a ton of value to publishers who are making money on subscriptions, but we're not paying ourselves enough to survive, to survive, right? So basically the question came up as like, how can we charge a monthly recurring fee and be able to deliver value to our customers, right? So switching from $295 a year, we launched $125 a month.
Okay.
Right.
And when did you do that? Which year?
I knew you were going to ask me that. That was maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
3 or 4 years?
Something like that.
Okay.
so we started that, and you raise your price because we're like literally we're like quadrupling our pricing is essentially what we're doing. But with that came consulting, right?
Yeah.
So it came like we could Zoom up with people and help them set up the subscription funnel. And the bottom line is that is what really worked, right? Because publishers have gone through this transition from print to YouTube and TikTok and all this new technology pouring at them. They're completely, it's deer in the headlights. They don't really know what to do. They're just like, there's so much technology coming out, and there's so many people, talking to them, like, and then what we were doing is we were starting to have success. Like we were producing success for magazine publishers to start with, and then news publishers, and now content creators of all kinds. And so when you show success, say, we took like Modern Drummer magazine is a great example where, we spent time with them and help them set up paid subscriptions, and they succeeded. And it's like, okay, here's success, and then we're going to talk to you about what actually works. And they're like, and of course you have to build out your marketing to support that and all that, but it worked. It just like, so publishers, yes, started paying a higher price, a monthly recurring price that could sustain us because we were giving them the software and the support. And of course, you can hire more developers. You can, you spend more time with customers as your price level goes up. And and because the publishers are in such a tough spot, they need the help. They really, I know you know this, but they need so much help so that when you give it to them and it actually works, they stick around, they're making money. Everybody's happy, and so that's where we're at. So, and one comment I want to make though, because I remember when we hit 100 WordPress repository, users, we were like, oh, that's exciting. And then we get an email from like a prospective lead saying, hey, you guys only have like 100 to 500 users. Like, how small are you? And it's like, well, in the general WordPress space, that's nothing, right?
Yeah,
but when you're really focused on a niche, it doesn't matter. Like you don't need 1 million customers. That's not your group. You want to spend more time with your customers to build the case study. So we actually have a new product launching that we haven't even posted yet. We have 2 publishers that have asked us for this. So we were like, well, we need to do this. And that's like a monthly, just a monthly subscription funnel review of their website. And that includes the Leaky Paywall setup, but also includes the newsletter setup, because the two are just so tied together, especially with like the trend in premium newsletter. So we're helping some publishers build new premium newsletter products that are easily connected to the payment system, to Leaky Paywall. So the bottom line is, if you're building a plugin and you're going to sell it, you probably want to sell it like you normally would in the WordPress space. Get some customers, but talk to them, right? Figure out what are their real pain points, and then figure out what they like. Do they need your help? Like, can you help them by talking to them once a quarter, and you can charge more for that. If you can help somebody by actually talking to them, there's money for you.
I think you made a very good point about like knowing what kind of plugin or product you have, because a lot of time we assume or compare that that particular WordPress plugin or top 10 WordPress plugin, let's say Yoast, or like whatever those top 10 plugins are. Sometimes I think it's not right to compare with them, because as you say, like Yoast is a very multi-purpose or a general plugin, that even like a small business to 100 people editorial team, they all might be using it. But on the other end, there are several other plugins which actually solve one big good problem. So in that case, probably your market size will be smaller, but you are serving them in a very different way than a Yoast will connect with. with their users or customers. So I think kind of finding that where do we like which bucket we belong to, like whether this is a plugin that might only have 1,000 or 10,000 potential customers, or it will have 1 million or 10 million potential customers. That kind of like changes how you should go about your product or messaging.
Yeah, I think I agree 1,000%. And I would just add that when you're building something, don't compete with the big guys like us. Don't do that. Like there's no mental space for the customer. They ask around, what's the most popular SEO plugin? Oh, boom, there you go. Build something no one else is building. Go find a pain point for some customer. I'll give you one that we this week we ran across a customer who wants to auto post their posts into social media, and specifically Instagram. There's no great system for that.
Yeah,
it's no really good way to do a personal automated Instagram posting. It's just a little example, but like somebody could build that. Just use Zapier or something, and use their AI that's built in. You could build a beautiful little business out of just that one thing. And be very focused on it. But yeah, find the niche where you can be number one in. That's I think, like when you specialize, that's what happens, right? You become really, really good, and you're recognized. So, if a publisher is looking for a WordPress based solution, there are membership plugins available, but they're not targeted to publishers' needs. They're really not. And so there's such advantage of being number one in your super tight niche, and it's easy to go wide. Like that's the challenge, is to go narrow. It's once you get going, it's so easy to be derailed with other projects and ideas and things like that. And it's really, and we've done it. I've derailed, and you come back and say, oh, that was dumb. We need to stick to what we're doing, right? And just be really, really good at that. So
solving the complex problem and doing something that a lot of people don't think about doing, is I think especially now, because there are so many WordPress plugins, pretty much you can think about any topic and you will find more than 100 plugins on doing the same thing. Yes. And I want to share a funny story about the Multicollab. So so when that we started, Multicollab started as an agency business. I mean, we are still into agency. And when I was discussing the idea with my project manager and technical team, I was like, hey, I think we should build this collaboration plugin or a tool in WordPress, and that will do like Google Docs style commenting and suggestions and real-time editing and all that stuff. So when I shared this idea with the team, at that time, actually the kind of like idea was already one of our clients, what they wanted this, so they asked us, and it was very complex at that time to think about the whole real-time editing and being in the WordPress. So we were discussing that, and my team say like that looks like very complex problem. It will take a lot of time and energy, and we even don't know, if it's possible, like all the different things. It's like, I don't think so. So they say like, they think it's not a good thing to kind of invest our time and energy. Instead, we should build something that like people already been built, or something like, that already popular. And I was like, no, that's the exact reason why we should be working on this. It's like it's a very complex problem. I was like, no, I know it's a very complex problem. And that's the exact reason why we should be working on that, because it's a complex, so a lot of people will not be even thinking about doing it, So I was like, because it's complex, it should not be actually the reason we should not be doing it. In fact, that should be the reason, that's actually why we should be working on that. And we also talked about what you mentioned about becoming the number one in the category. And we internally call it category king. So my term for that is like become a category king, so like something that, as you mentioned, that maybe paywall, or like collaboration. So collaboration in WordPress is something that when I did the research, I did not find that many solutions. Or
Mm.
in fact, basically, they were doing a little bit of collaboration, but it wasn't something that was that helpful.
Mm.
And that's where we decided that, yeah, like when it comes to the collaboration, we want to be we want to become a category king or number one in that category. So that's where we kind of started building Multicollab and developing all those features which help people collaborate in WordPress.
Well, and you build a moat for yourself too if you're willing to tackle the complex project. And usually the complex project is the payoff is bigger, right? So
Yeah.
you tend to stick with it too. You're not like, oh, we're going to build this little thing here that anybody can build. And you're also at risk for getting disinterested in it too,
Yeah.
which I think is a big problem. Like you're invested. You see the light, you see the application and how it helps because it's a complex problem, and that keeps you motivated.
Yeah.
If I read a lot of books and they're all kind of say the same thing. It's like, if you're going to start something, think big, right? Like go for it. Don't, that's what keeps you motivated.
Yeah.
Right? Solving a complex problem. It's a great way to put it. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Especially like when I also follow this principle that when you are in the beginning, like in the beginning of your career or beginning of your business, act first and think later. So at that time, you can just experiment with everything, like whatever you want to do it, and think about it later, like whether that was good or not. But once you have 10 years of experience in something, or like in the business or as a career, after that, you should actually think first and act later, because then you can't just keep doing everything, because then you have a reputation on stake. But also, like, you have so much expertise and experience, and then that's a point where we should be very, very careful about selection, like where I should put my time and energy. So kind of like that's a very big mindset shift that I'm kind of like challenging to myself. So every 5 years, I was like, okay, I don't want to do so many things. I want to do just few things, but I want to do really well. But in the beginning of my career, I worked for 16, 18 hours a day. But now I was like, all right, how I can work 6 hours next year, how I can work 4 hours a day next year. So that's what I kind of like I'm going.
Right. Absolutely. Well, the thing about it too, I mean, I appreciate that, because when I look at my own work schedule, my energy, it's all about managing energy, right? My energy is all in the first half of the day, essentially.
Yeah.
So my days either starts at, like 6 a.m, depending on the kids and what they're doing, or it starts maybe a little later if there's no kid stuff. And then I'll go straight till maybe 2 o'clock, and then I'll stop. And then the afternoon for me is, okay, let's get the energy back. Let's get the, so there's always exercise. Is daily, got to go do something. And I love playing different sports and activities, and then just general exercise.
Yeah. And you do that in afternoon, right?
Yeah, I do. That's my schedule. I know some people are morning exercisers, but that's not me.
No, I have heard multiple different research and studies around like doing a workout or some sports activity in the middle of the day is actually really good, because then you get like the next level of energy. So basically it's like recharging, like putting your phone into the charging, because in the morning to afternoon, you are consuming a lot of energy, and your phone needs a little bit of extra battery, and that's where I think the workout or sports activity that will actually recharge you, and then you will get a couple more hours of extra energy that you can leverage.
Yeah, and I'll add my other secret trick is taking a nap. So
nice.
Yeah. I nap for 25 minutes. I set my watch to 25 minutes. That is the magical number I found, where I will wake up, and in 5 minutes I am ready to go, and it will take me into the evening as far as energy goes. So I have 2 boys, my wife, it's busy. I like to cook, there's a lot of stuff happening at that time period. And I am psyched to be doing it, right? Like it's like I'm awake, it's great. And so the afternoon period, and you know, I look at the morning, like I use Calendly for booking meetings. They're all stacked up in the morning on the days. The internal meetings I might push a little bit later in the day, in the early afternoon, and then that keeps my energy really working pretty well. And you can get so much done.
Yeah.
When you have high energy, you make decisions like boom, right? You're just, when you're dragging, you get nothing done. Why bother? That's my opinion. I just don't bother. So, and that's really been the key, you know, it's a combination of that 25-minute nap. And I know for some people it's 19 minutes and some people it's different, but the 20-minute mark, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And don't go longer. Like do it like, you know, I've tried it. You can't do it. It's like that. It's just a short, you know, reset, and then the exercise, and you end up taking a chunk of a break. You know, for me, it's right around the 3 o'clock mark, and and man, it just resets your day. And if I wanted to work at night, I mean, I do have meetings at night for like Australia, and and at 8 o'clock, I get a cup of tea. I'm ready to go. I'm awake. You know.
Nice.
So yeah.
No, thanks for sharing that. I love your nap hack, because I started with that 3 years ago, and yeah, that by far, like, I talked a lot about it to my team, and also have written a lot about the power of benefits of the nap and some tips and hacks of the naps. But I 100% agree with you. The napping in the middle of the day is the best way to kind of like, you know, not just from the productivity perspective or getting things done. Of course, like those are the benefits where you will get more creative energy, productive energy, but there are so many health benefits for that as well. And that's something that I think is really helpful, or not more than helpful, actually, is much more advisable to anyone who wants to kind of like, you know, the leverage this hack and get extra energy in the middle of the day.
Yeah, I count to 10, count each breath to 10 in and out, just, and then go back and start over at 1. It's meditating, right? Like that's the trick. And you just, and then you go, sometimes you lose your mind and you're like, oh, I'm on 26. It's okay. You just reset, start at 1. And boy, if you train, you can train yourself to go under. It's amazing how it works.
Yeah.
But some people say, oh, I can't nap. I'm not sure it really matters if you go fully under. I think just the period where you can feel your body letting go, you know, relax, and your body gets to like, just come to a, you know, I don't know, a stop, brings that energy back. So, yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, no, especially I think the nap, there is also one thing that a lot of people, they do not understand that nap, you know, it's not something that you really need to fall asleep, you know, it can count as a nap. But there is like that few minutes of moment when we try to take a nap where we feel like, you know, our mind and body has disconnected from the actual world, even if it's for like 30 seconds or a minute. That is also much more helpful. So that's what I personally experienced, that in the beginning when I tried to take a nap, I feel like, if I try to wake up in 15-20 minutes, you know, I was like, oh, did I feel like I had a good like sleep or nap? But actually it's not the time that counts. It's just like, if you are just able to enter into that moment, even for 30 seconds, that's a good rest. Yeah.
No, I support that. I've done a minute. You know, it's like you're about to like go do something, but you have a minute, and it's like, you know what, I'm exhausted. I'm gonna just sit for a minute, and then it's like, it's magical. You get a kick, right?
Yeah.
It is amazing. Yeah. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. 10 minutes works great. If, you know, everyone has I think everyone has their number depending on, you know.
Yeah.
So cool. A fellow napper. Love it.
Yeah. And thanks for saying that hack, because I think that's something that I'm also trying to focus more as an entrepreneur, to kind of like continue to focusing on growing the business, because growth, yes, it's necessary, you know. I mean, more than necessary is something that as an entrepreneur, we signed up for that, right? We signed up as an entrepreneur we sign it for like to growing our business, growing our skills, and a lot of other aspect, like whatever we call it important in our life, whether it's a spiritual growth, financial growth, so all of that requires efforts. All of that requires that you need to put time and energy. But in order to make sure that you have this growth for a long term, because growth is not for a short term too, right? We are not just doing it like I'm just gonna run like a crazy for the 5 years and then I'm gonna rest for the rest of my life. It's not like that, right? So that's where this peaceful growth that I have been exploring, the subject of like growing in all the areas of our life, but also not doing that at the cost of our health, relationship, and other areas where we feel like that it's not a holistic success. So that is where this nap and other hacks that you mentioned, like focusing on our health, making sure that we have a right kind of routine, a more healthy routine that supports this growth for a longer run, but also gives us a purpose in a life. So yeah, there are a lot of those different topics that I'm exploring right now, and trying to balance the growth with the other areas in life. So
it's a challenge for sure, but it's so important. You want to be a happy entrepreneur, and there are challenges. You have days where the days just suck. You're just had a bad day, whatever happened, and they suck. But you know what? The next day's better, right? Yeah. And then you keep going, and you got to grind some of that out. But in general, I think part of the benefit of being an entrepreneur is you get to design your own agenda. You get to design your life, and the value of that is infinite. And if your energy, and we're talking about, you're talking about energy management is what you're talking about. How do you manage your time and energy? So you want to be energetic for your business. So you got to figure out, everything about that. What time of day is that, right? When do you like to, when are you best with people? When are you best working alone on things? When do you get tired? Like, it's really important. When do you tire out? Because we all tire out. And then, okay, what can I do about that? Right? How do I become happy? Like, when I get tired, I get happy. I'm like, boy, I need a nap. And I go take one.
Yeah.
And it's only 25 minutes.
Right.
Oh my God. Anyway, you can get me going for a while.
All right. A couple more questions, and especially let's go back to the growth and the numbers. So yeah, I really want to share this with in our audience, that when it comes to the growth, like you started with 2 people, and you said that initially when you launched the plugin, it has been 8 years. So in these 8 years, what are those growth numbers or metrics that you manage in terms of the number of clients, installs, revenue growth, or anything that can help understand that in last 8 years, how did you grow your business?
Yeah. So we've been measuring our KPIs. We've been measuring 3 things: leads in, how many new requests do we get in? How many sales do we? And we track demos too, but really, how many new customers? And then how many launches, which is the trickiest one to know exactly when someone's launched. And then so we keep an eye on that, and that's healthy, and it keeps you motivated to kind of keep looking at what you're doing. I've also been a big fan of education, so I've taken a lot of courses. I read a lot of books on marketing. It was early on, it was a lot of management. Now it's all marketing, really, and trying to crack the code on that. I took this growth accelerator course with Dan Martell last year, and then we hired a part-time CMO about 6 months ago, which has been really.
How big is your team right now, Pete?
7.
7?
So, yeah.
Oh, nice.
So,
and what about your customers? Like, when you at this moment, how many the paid customers that you have?
Well, we 1,000 publishers, over 1,000 at least.
4,000?
Yeah, but that, there's a lot of free versions of Leaky Paywall kicking around. I mean, well into the hundreds of paying customers, and it's been really good.
Nice.
So,
do you track any install base, like total install, free install, or
we're trying now, but we can't because of WordPress rules.
right?
We can't basically ping WordPress for data. So that's okay. We do track our customers. We see what they're doing. We're like, the biggest challenge for us now is looping back to the customers and doing reviews. So reconnecting with the customers, looking at their installation, suggesting updates, especially if there's like new things that we've released, and then they can apply all that good stuff. And so we're getting better at that now. And we're promoting, like, because we now are able to afford to talk to our customers with a monthly recurring fee, we now every quarter will send out an email saying, hey, why don't you book, and I want to talk to them personally. At this point, it's really, really important. Or we have someone else that can do it too, but I really like to do it. I like to teach, so it's kind of like my favorite thing. And maybe at some point that'll stop, but right now and we have, you have a percentage of customers that'll take you up on doing a review, and we're actually working on doing a video review as like a here's your monthly video review of your installation, and then let's meet, or not. You can just take it to your team to implement, or you can talk to us about a custom development or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But the idea is, okay, we have publishers coming in, and they all need help, and we help them up front. We get them launched, and they're succeeding. Great. Okay. New email. Their email list is growing. Subscriber base is growing. But what about in 6 months, right? What about in 12 months? What about next year? So trying to build that system where you're just constantly reaching out and looping back in. And we've started that. That's working really, really well. And so we're actually going to monetize that a bit now as well. We're still going to offer that, but if somebody wants that every single month feedback, we'll give it to them. So we'll see how that goes. So let's see the growth. What else was on the growth side?
Do you manage or like focus on growing your business every year, like ARR, or just in general business revenue?
Yeah. We do set targets, but the reality is we're just focused on producing good content, good marketing. Like our CMO, and this has been really nice for us. Like in this, I think in a growth phase, like you start by doing everything yourself, or maybe you have a partner and you do everything, and then you get some customers, you get some feedback, and you're bootstrapping. But if you start seeing a trend up, you'll get more confidence in spending money on your own business, right? And so you'll be able to afford things like branding. You'll be able to afford things like a part-time CMO. Like you'll be able to afford another developer. You'll be able to, like all these things they do take time. And like you said, these things like take 10 years, to grow a really strong business. That would be conservative, I would say. But always keeping an eye on, if you get growth, like we didn't look at branding for a very, very long time. We had a WordPress theme. It looked okay. It wasn't great. It was like, here's our stuff, and then when we hired our CMO, he's like, it's great to hire somebody that tells you
like, well, we need to do a lot of work.
Like, no, you're wrong. And that's good. And then you get that what do they call it? Productive friction, going and getting stuff done.
And it also goes back to what I said earlier, that like in the beginning, when you're starting something, that it's okay, like don't think too much about strategy and all that. Like just do things, because you learn a lot just by doing things. And I think it's there is nothing to lose in the beginning, but once you have a business, when when you like 10 years or whatever certain revenues, or when you hit that mark, after that, yeah, it's worth spending more time on like thinking about like which direction we want to go.
Well, so for us anyway, like you start in a market and you're like, oh, people like our stuff and whatever you're selling, whatever tool or service or whatever you're selling.
Yeah.
And then you start attracting not only more customers, but bigger customers. You know, for us, we started with the magazine publisher. There's some big magazine publishers out there doing the agency work. But when we started selling Leaky Paywall as a plugin suite originally, you know, we had local news publishers. We had a lot of solopreneurs who were publishing. Bought it, that's fine. But we started attracting some bigger customers. And the challenge is that I think we're getting to where getting a little bit more where we need to be with the rebranding. But the challenge is all of a sudden you have these bigger customers, like Outdoor Magazine got in touch, right? And it's like, they're a big magazine, right? And it's like, they got in touch with us before our rebrand, right? Which kind of sucked. So they look at you and they go, hey, this looks really cool, but I don't know about the company. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
I like what you're doing, but you kind of scare me. You know? So you're not able to attract those large. Now, and I will tell you, since the rebrand, you know, we've attracted some pretty good size publishers who are now considering us. Our pricing is still on the low side. That's a little bit of a problem. So that's going to go up soon. Yeah. But you know, you end up, and then you got to figure out like where do you really belong, right? For us, the mid market, we do deal with smaller publishers. That's great. We're not that expensive, and that's a good fit. For the solopreneur who's just starting out, we're not the right. And for the publisher that just wants something super simple, you know, like a donation system or something, we're not really the right solution. We're for that mid market regional news publisher, content creator that really wants to get serious and really wants to lean into reader revenue and build their audience and really knock it out of the park and be sophisticated about it. So you kind of need to know where you want to land, and then you know, you will figure that out. You'll keep attracting some of your sort of older, smaller customers, and you'll attract those bigger publishers. And surprise, surprise, you know, we had one of our biggest competitors in the space. Yeah. You know, we had a publisher coming on board from that competitor, which we didn't think would ever happen.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, you try, pull the trigger, try something, test something. I think in the software space, they say like, don't even build a product, just put up a landing page. And like, hey, this is the concept. You could do a few mock-up screenshots or something like that, but don't write any code. Just do a mock-up and then go talk to people. And it's like, this is what we're thinking about doing. And then what you do is, this is my recent pricing study I was coming across, is ask, you know, do the mock-ups, do the landing page, get on a Zoom call, show them how it works, what the pain point it solves. And then at the very end, make sure you absolutely ask them, how much would you pay for this? Let them pick a number.
Yeah.
Right? So you got to get a sense for like, would you buy this, and how much would you pay? Right. Would you buy this? Yeah, this looks great. How much would you pay?
Yeah.
You know, so that's like, to your point of like, try stuff. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Try.
But I think that's also a good point where, because if we look at a lot of different WordPress plugins out there, most of them, you know, pretty much like a very decent amount of them has been built by the developers or engineers, you know. So if you look at the founders or the creators of those plugins, they don't have necessarily like marketing, sales, or business background. More they have is engineering, coding, and programming background. And one thing that I have noticed that in my company is that like whenever I get an idea from developers or engineers, like they are much more excited about creating the solution, but they don't know whether that's like a market for that, or like, you know, how I'm going to convert this product into a business. And I always like question that. I was like, I know that like as a developer programmer, we like to solve a problem, but there are two ways to think about solving a problem, like whether this problem we can create a business from this problem, or this is just something that you want to solve a problem. It's like, go ahead, do it and put it on maybe WordPress org or GitHub, but like there are two ways to go. Like you want to do this because it will satisfy you, or you want to do this because you see that there is a business opportunity here. And that's something that I like, especially like we being an agency business as well. For us, that's kind of like an advantage because we are not just doing a guessing game. We already have the clients telling us like, I want that, so we already have a market. I already know that like there are these customers who are ready to pay to solve this problem. And so that's what I always look into as well, in order to think about what kind of product business I want to enter into.
For sure. Yeah. Scratching your own itch. Like if you have an itch to build something because it's a pain point for you, that's a great starting point. You should absolutely just do that. You could do it by building it, or you could do it by mocking it up and talking to people. I think if you're solving a pain point for sort of a customer segment, you definitely need to talk to that customer segment. Like if you think, okay, this group of customers, they need, I think they need the solution. So I think is powerful and dangerous, and you should pull the trigger. But I would say pull the trigger by talking to them first, and making sure you ask them, would you buy this, and how much would you pay? That's really it. And then pick a number, and then start low. I'm a fan of starting low. I know you need to, for fancy stuff you need to have a high price, but when you're starting out, just start with a number where it's easy for new people to say yes. They give you money, and then talk to them. What's working, what's not working, and then it's really easy to raise your pricing. It is. And then find a way to, if you're in the WordPress plugin space, find a way to add the value so that you can charge a monthly recurring fee, and that's going to be support probably. Installation, configuration, setup. It's going to be marketing guidance. It's going to be all the stuff that customers want. They're desperate for it. They want help. They're like, oh, this looks awesome, but I don't want to do it. I can maintain my car, but man, I don't want to do it. Like, it's like, really, here, take my money, So for a business, it's like, people are running their businesses. They don't want to learn your stuff. Some do, but some are like, look, just do it. I'll do, or tell me what to do, and then I'll do that. Right. So anyway,
great stuff. Thanks, Pete, for sharing that. I have one last question, and then we'll bring this home. The question is, you mentioned about the books earlier, that you like to read books, and you have been also investing your time in learning. So what book do you recommend to someone who is an entrepreneur, and wants to grow their business, but also struggling with balancing that growth with their health or mental health, or other areas of the life? Is there any book that you recommend for them so that they can balance the life and work?
Yeah, I would say Dan Martell's new book, Buy Back Your Time, is one of the best books I've read in marketing. That is, he really breaks it down for like running a business. You only have a limited amount of time, and he explains how to afford, people to help you do the things you don't want to do in your business as you gain traction.
Right.
There's some, and he pulls from, a lot of other great authors, but it's really, really good. I'm reading it for the second time now. I would listen to Startups for the Rest of Us, the podcast. That's
what is it called?
Startups for the Rest of Us.
Okay.
That's that podcast is fantastic. It's all about, SaaS founders, right? Okay. And how to start a SaaS product, which WordPress really is fringing in on right now. Like what is a SaaS product? Like, we sell WordPress plugins, but we also sell, and we do have some SaaS elements to our service, but we sell the support. We sell an ongoing monthly, software and support hybrid that is really a SaaS model for. So if you're So Startups for the Rest of Us. I'm a big Tim Ferriss podcast fan. I used to listen to a lot of him.
Me too.
Not so much anymore, but boy, every time I listen to an episode, it's fantastic. So they find the guests that you want to listen to on his podcast.
Yeah.
That's really, really good. And listen to audiobooks. That's what I do. I read a lot of newsletters and news during my workday. And when I'm driving in the car, that's my time to read a book. So when I go for sometimes a trail run or riding my bike or doing the dishwasher and vacuuming and stuff like that.
Yeah. No, that's a great advice, Pete. Especially everything that you mentioned, starting with audiobook or podcast. I think that's the best way to learn. And I started that since last few years. And it's I think the most effective way to learn, because you are also getting out on a walk and doing other stuff, but also passively listening and learning. I'm also glad that you mentioned about Dan Model's Buy Back Your Time.
Yes.
And I read that book a few months ago, and I think you're right. Like, it has a lot of great tips and advice for the entrepreneurs in order to how to balance the growth and life together.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just simply realizing you're going to love doing some things and not really love doing other things, and how to figure out how to you step your way up so that you can afford to hire someone to do the things you don't want to do. And then that's how you maintain your energy in the business, right? Because then you're doing the stuff you love, right?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Awesome.
Cool.
Great. Awesome. So Pete, where can our audience learn more about you or find you online?
So leakypaywall.com, that's our website. And then if you go into LinkedIn, I do hang out in LinkedIn. It's the only social space that I will venture into at this point. And /Ericson, Ericson, or just look me up, Peter Ericson.
We'll put all of this in our show notes as well, so they can easily go and find it.
Perfect.
Great. Thanks, Pete. It was really great talking to you, and thanks for sharing all the tips and advice for the entrepreneurs to balance both growth and life. Hey, everyone. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Peaceful Growth. Let me tell you, I'm an introvert, and also English is not my first language. So you would understand how uncomfortable it would be for me to do a podcast like this. But we don't grow staying in our comfort zone. And that's what I'm doing here, and also encourage you to do things that challenges you and take you out of your comfort zone. I would also appreciate it if you shared this episode with others. It will help me on my mission to inspire 100 million people to build an extraordinary life. To learn more about how I balance my multi-million-dollar business and continue to learn and grow in other areas of life, check out my weekly newsletter, Learn Plus Grow, on anilg.substack.com. May the peace and growth be with you.